These people are sick scum, okay? And they don't even care that Fukushima was built on a fault line, on a coastline with tsunamis, and is now sinking into the mud. Okay, Dr. Davis says trained in nuclear warfare, is a Navy LTD comm.
Well, thank you, Alex. Retired as lieutenant commander. I was a dual-designated flight surgeon and hyperbaric officer. I was backup flight surgeon for the Blue Angels, worked with SEAL Team 5 out in Coronado, had a lot of the tours on nuclear ships. So I had special training in nuclear, biological, and chemical warfare as part of my significant additional training that I had as part of my dual designation status. One of only 26 officers at the time that had ever gone through that extensive amount of training. So some people would consider me an expert. I don't consider myself an expert because, you know, that was not my primary job.
Sure, I understand, but you can certainly speak to it. What do you think's going on here? I mean, certainly this should be a news issue.
Well, of course. And I think one of the things that you've brought up in the past that I haven't heard lately is that every nuclear reactor in the world has a fingerprint. They all have a unique spectrum of alpha particles, beta particles, cesium, yttrium, all the various things.
Very well said. You've got the county saying we don't know if it comes from Fukushima. They knew day one what was going on in the reactor by the different isotopes that were released. That's why they knew that plutonium had been released because of the isotopes, and they knew fission had occurred during that big explosion at the MOX 3 reactor, according to the physicist I had on. Exactly. So when they say they don't know, they're full of it. Go ahead.
It may be that they would be like NIST. When NIST was asked whether any explosives were used in 9/11, they said, we found no evidence of explosives. And then they were asked, did you look? And they said no.
Yes.
So it may be the same kind of, mismanagement, but I doubt it. I think that these people probably know absolutely what's going on, and they're simply not providing the public with this information. And it would be so easy to do. Any mass spec GC equipment at any laboratory worth its salt to determine those fingerprints pretty easily, and it's not difficult to understand where this material is coming from.
Well, sure. I mean, 2.5 years ago when it was first hitting us at high levels, all the universities picked up 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 15, 20 times, depending on the isotope. They had a whole list of it. And suddenly the feds came in and they didn't release the info anymore. Well, the feds aren't God. We have a right to know what's hitting our coastline. And we have a right to, know mitigating ways to protect ourselves. Like, you notice government's buying iodine, but not telling the public to do it. Why do you think that is?
I think that they realize that there are certain people that are in a hazardous situation in their employ, and that they want to try and protect those people without having to basically tell the public to protect themselves. I mean, unfortunately, over time, I have listened and learned from you and many others. I do believe that we're under a genocidal operation in this world, which is sad to say. It was probably the most difficult thing for me to come to believe, because it just is hard to imagine. But when you understand the psychopathy of these people and what they're up to, it would make sense as part of the rest of the spectrum of all of the soft kill that they're doing simultaneously to us as a population, whether it's chemtrails, GMOs, or fluoride, or all these other things. Why not? Well, why not provide radiation? I mean, why not just one more, chip in the gun? I mean,
if you look at the mindset of these globalists, they literally fit the MO of demons. Literal demons. Psychopathy is among the most difficult disorders to spot. The psychopath can appear normal, even charming. Underneath, they lack conscious empathy, making them manipulative, volatile, and often, but by no means always criminal.
Well, the one thing that I would add is that, and you've brought this up since you started your broadcast, and that is this DNA sampling that occurs at birth. And we now know that psychopaths are wired differently. Their brains are actually different than normal people.
It's genetic, and they can identify it.
I believe that they are self-selecting at birth. They're identifying people that are psychopaths. They follow them. They certainly have advanced technology, as you've talked about, and they would make overtures to these people at the appropriate times in their life to bring them in and to make them their minions. Whether they want to make them part of an MK Ultra type of mind control program or put them in various positions of authority and move them up the ladder quickly, place them in corporations, place them in military.
Oh, no, we know they do that. For 41 years, they've been secretly worldwide declassified, but they take blood at birth, not for a blood test. That's all a lie. It's then put in global databases. You're absolutely right. They have built a legion of doom with psychological tests and then DNA testing. They are building an army of Satanists, an army of devil worshippers, an army of psychopaths, an army of evil. How do you counter something like that? And then they're going to have robots and drones that'll follow orders, and then the psychopaths are going to be dealt with as well. I mean, how do you face something like that?
Well, I think that, you being a student of history, you will know that the one key weakness of every tyranny, and they all follow, as you say, an archetype. They all follow the same basic path. The one thing that a tyrant cannot resist is to centralize his power, because that allows him to completely dominate. He doesn't share power, he centralizes it. But that is the key weakness of any tyranny. That's why they always collapse, because the more dominating they become, the more powerful, the more centralized the control, the more easily it is broken, it is tapped into, because there will always be patriots. That's where our edge is. As you said, we have the moral high ground, and we have God on our side. We have the tools to be able to win this battle. Unfortunately, it's going to have to get worse, in my opinion, before it gets better. But it's a battle that will be won. It's always been won in history. These guys just have more complex technology. That's all. They don't have any different mindset.
And they have a will to take power when the average person doesn't want to run people's lives. The average person is confident and happy and secure and a loner.
That's right. But these guys, they insist on having total domination, like I said. But that is their fundamental weakness. And that's what always brings them down. That's what's going to bring this globalist cycle of tyranny. I just hope, Alex, I hope that this time, when this cycle runs its course, that we will simply not go back and replace this tyranny with another, which we've done time and time again.
And we may not make it through another cycle because we've got such powerful weapons now. Psychopaths always tend to get control in society, and then they always demand total control. And it's a fact of the web they weave. Nico, one of our producers, was saying, if you ever want to go public with who you are and send us your info, you could be a guest sometime. You sound like a smart fella, and so we're going to get your info, Dr. Davis, if you want to be a guest sometime on the show and send us your info. God bless you.
I'd be glad to. Thank you.
You bet. Very interesting, smart guy. And that's what's so crazy. When you talk to somebody who knows what they're talking about and you know what they know and you know, we need somebody who's well-spoken and calm like he is.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed.
They're a bunch of criminals. They're a bunch of criminals. They've taken over our government. He who makes the money makes the rule. They're a bunch of criminals. They're a bunch of criminals. They've taken over our government. He who makes the money makes the rule. They're a bunch of criminals. They're a bunch of criminals. They've taken over our government. He who makes the money makes the rule. They're a bunch of criminals. They're a bunch of criminals. They've taken over our government. He who makes the money makes the rule. They're a bunch of criminals. They're a bunch of criminals. They've taken over our government. He who makes the money makes the rule. They're a bunch of criminals. They're a bunch of criminals. They've taken over our government. He who makes the money makes the rule.
Those weapons of mass destruction got to be somewhere. Nope, no weapons over there. Maybe under here.
A time comes when silence is betrayal. That time has come for us, even when pressed by the demands of inner truth. The world now demands a maturity of America that we may not be able to achieve. A nation that continues year after year to spend more money on military defense than on programs of social uplift is approaching spiritual death. Somehow this madness must cease. We must stop now. I speak as one who loves America, through the leaders of our own nation. Great initiative in this war is ours. The initiative to stop it must be ours.